County Metropolitan Transportation Authority, so we can tell you how we can move from here to the future. And he's going to talk about public-private partnerships, going to talk about other questions you may have, and so give you an update on the agency. I'm sure people have lots of questions, so welcome. Let's give welcome Art. Thank you.
Nice to be here with you. I'll talk just a little bit about Metro, what we're doing, and what's going on, and then I'll open it up for questions. I promise to give you honest answers. I don't promise to give you the answers if you want. Shucks, right? So I've been Metro CEO for about 7 years. We are moving the biggest capital program in the United States. Every project has detractors and people question it, and that's fine. God bless everybody. But our job is to deliver the measure of our program, and we're seeking to do that. A little bit on Metro, what it is. Our budget's close to $5 billion a year. We have 9,500 employees, around 1,000 buses, 6 rail lines. We're involved in freeway work, rail construction. This year, a year from now, we'll have 5 rail lines under construction. We are involved in high-speed rail, commuter rail, good movement out of the ports of LA and Long Beach. It's a big outfit. I tell my coworkers, and they are excited about it, and the board and the public, that we are all very fortunate because we are breathing shiny, the second biggest city in the country, and the biggest county. That's why I came to Metro. When I was in Orange County, I got the offer. I was happy down there. And it was very hard to accept the offer. Then I thought, well, how can I turn down a chance to impact the future of the second biggest city in the nation? That's why I'm here tonight. It's a big outfit. I like to get board members out in cities around the country because they can see that what we do in Los Angeles is not typical at all. You know, we have multiple billion-dollar plus projects. You go to a place like Philadelphia and you have a $500 million project they're really happy about. We've got a bunch of those. But we're moving those projects. We're successful with it. And we have a great deal of public support. Great deal of public support. The election with Measure J is kind of funny. We got 66.1 or 0.2%. The folks who got 37% or 33% thought, great, we won. No, Metro got 66% approval ratings from the voters. That's because we're delivering the goods. Why are we doing this? Because we're preparing the city for the future. We face a changed future. The end of the era of cheap gasoline is coming. It's not here already. You know, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, when I was growing up here, land was plentiful. Gasoline was cheap. You know, no one worried about transit. No one worried about the yellow cars being torn up. No one worried about the red cars being torn up because gas was cheap and land was endless. Well, today we face a different state of affairs. Today we face a situation where we can't hear me. Well, as I was saying, I'm sorry. I apologize. I am by nature a very soft-spoken person. I am kind and gentle. God, even when they don't like me. So I'm sorry if you can't hear me. It's going to be hard for me to adjust. So we're preparing for the future. That's what we're doing. Preparing for the future by working on highway projects, and transit projects, rail projects, and bus projects. We have $1 billion rail car procurement going on right now. We're buying 550 buses. We've got a bunch of highway and transit projects, and they'll all move. In a couple of months, we're going to have 2 full-funding grant agreements for the connector and for the subway. No one else in the country has 2 projects of that magnitude at the same time. A year from now, 2 years from now, we'll be approaching the opening of the Gold Line to Azusa, the Expo Line to Santa Monica. We'll be under construction on the Crenshaw Line to a subway out to Santa Monica, out to Westwood ultimately, and also the connector. A lot of stuff going on. Let me talk a little bit about some of the problems we face. We have an issue with fares. We have a fare system and a route system which are based on incompatible premises. The route system of the buses and trains assumes transfers, as all systems do around the world. But the fare system discourages transfers. So let's imagine a student at UCLA who is, of course, impoverished as he or she is a UCLA student and therefore unemployed. This student boards, this board, and then they'll be on welfare. We'll hire them here in Franklin. This student boards a bus in Westwood, going to downtown Los Angeles. Makes sense? So he or she gets to Western, where the subway currently ends. Should get off there and transfer to a train because it's 3 or 4 times faster. But he or she doesn't, because you got to pay a whole new fare. They get to Vermont. Now in Vermont, you got the purple and the red lines running, so the headways, the frequencies are tighter. They ought to certainly get off there and transfer to a train because it's faster. But they don't, because you got to pay a whole new fare. So look what happens here. Because of the fare structure, we don't capture the full benefit of the investment in the rail lines. And because of that, because the person stays on the bus, we artificially increase or maintain a higher level of ridership on the Wilshire bus line, driving up the cost of operating the bus system. So we're not capturing the benefit of the subway, and we're driving the bus because we have incompatible premises for the train, for the route system and the fare system. So with the board, we missed the discussion about what we ought to do about this. I would note for you that we have amongst, in the world by which I mean Europe, North America, Asia, South America, we have about the lowest fare per boarding of any big city. We have, I think, the lowest, not the lowest, very nearly the lowest percent of cost borne by the user of any big city in those continents. We have the lowest load ratio because of the board's desire to have standees, even though the trips on the bus are fairly short. So what happens here is we face a crisis. Not this year and not next year. Here's how we face a crisis. We're going to have to increase the fare, the revenue for the board. Now we're going to recommend that to the board. We're going to talk about a variety of things. We're going to talk about allowing transfers, by the way. We're going to talk about peak fares. For people who have a low income, they can ride during the off-peak period. We're going to raise the issue to the board. We provided them with a ton of data so they can evaluate it. If they come up with a better solution, so we're going to have that discussion in the coming year. We're going to put in the budget for next year a discussion on bus routes and train routes. We want to talk about doing some studies in the coming year on how we can do a better job of coordinating buses and trains. In addition to the Wilshire Boulevard example I just gave you, I'll give you another one. There's a bus line that comes down Broadway and it gets to Cesar Chavez and it turns east. And it comes west on Cesar Chavez, it goes north on Broadway. Assuming a transfer on Broadway to go into downtown where most folks are going, they got to pay another fare. So they don't do that. So they either have to walk or not take the bus or train. So we need to get our act together and do a better job of coordinating fares and bus routes. There was some discussion with the board about another sales tax measure. I know there's some interest in that. I don't know what will happen with that. I don't know what the board will do. They haven't voted. There's a discussion on it, but that's all there is. So I don't really have a lot to give you on that. I think the board does know that we enjoy a very high level of support from the public. So we'll see what happens. So with that, I think I'll comment on another area before I turn it over to you. When I talk to college students, I will say this to them. You picked a terrible time to finish college. no jobs, terrible economy. The baby boomers are afraid to retire because of the uncertainty of the economy. So therefore, they're deferring their retirements. So the pipeline of promotions is clogged. The ladder of success is blocked, and they're finishing college. Now you can imagine the hilarious looks on their face. It's quite dismal. But then I say, but don't give up hope. In fact, get ready. Because any day now, the baby boomers, like Charles Stark, are going to start dropping like flies. And when they do, the pipeline will be unclogged and the ladder unblocked. In the end, it is a message of hope and optimism. Charles is going to die. My point to them is, look, get ready. There's going to be big opportunities in other places, but you got to develop the skill sets. I'm not just talking about the fluffy, nice, white-collar things. I'm talking about hard skill sets for operations, for construction, all the activities that are required to run a big organization like Metro. There's a ton of opportunity here and elsewhere that you can get ready for. So we're helping you, by the way. We're doing investments in training, a lot of innovative things, innovative in the country, to get people ready for this next generation of transit managers and construction managers that we're going to need. So that's kind of an overview of where we are with Metro. Bart, is there anything else you'd like me to kind of cover?
We covered fares, public-private partnerships. Talk about your viewpoint on public-private partnerships.
Well, okay.
Expound as much as you can.
Sure. It's kind of seen right now as a panacea. Let's go out to the market and we'll get money to do private money to do projects, maybe. There are several forms a P3 might take. It might be as a financing mechanism, it might be as a funding mechanism, it might be against the toll facility or other revenue streams there might be. I don't know, I'm not sure what will happen here, but what I am fairly confident about is the board wants us to explore them. They want us to explore looking at opportunities that might exist to bring in private partners to invest in projects, both transit and highway projects, truck lane projects, the high desert corridor comes to mind. So we're going to explore the issue, and I'm not, we'll see where it ends up. I always believe that you should do the analysis before you come to a conclusion. So we're open to having to exploring the issue. I won't prejudge what the outcome might be. We'll see. As some of you have been involved in a toll facility, for example, so you do a traffic and revenue study. You project out what demand would be. You look at what kind of revenues might be developed, and what kind of revenue stream you might have, and what kind of buying capacity might exist. So we need to do all that kind of work. That work is just now starting. So we'll see. I don't know. I do know that in Europe and around the world, there's a lot more of this kind of work being done, also design build being in the US. But I think that faced with the limited revenues from Washington, D.C., the constrained Washington program, and the situation the state faces, that we're going to have to look at other ways of funding projects, and we should include public-private partnerships. Pardon me. In that discussion. I'm fighting a cold, so on occasion it erupts as a ticklish throat.
There's one other thing we should also cover is the
You lost the thought?
You contain a thought. Some of the upcoming projects, the potential of the Van Nuys Boulevard project, if you can touch on that, and I'll remember the one.
Well, it's the same basic thing. It's one of the many studies that we have going. We'll be looking at the bus application, the light rail application on Van Nuys. There's a great deal of interest in the valley now in rail. Very different from 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when there was not much interest in rail in the valley. But now there is. And so we're going to look at those options on Van Nuys. There's some desire on the part of some to explore converting the Orange Line to a rail line. Not so easy. Because if we're going to build a rail line there, we have to shut down the Orange Line for a number of years. Not so easy, But on the other hand, I will say this, the orange line, has anybody here ridden the orange line? I mean, it's crowded, right? I've ridden it. It's a crowded line out there. We're constrained. We have articulators out there running a 5-minute headway, which is fine. That's the best we can do with the signal system. So we're kind of capacity constrained. So if we want to add a bunch of capacity on that line, which might be merited, we should look at doing a light rail line, which is a lot of money, of course, to build it. But you can run a three-car headway, three-car train, and 5 or 6 minute headway would be a lot more capacity than we have to do with articulated buses. By the way, I'll just know personal bias. As a rule, I don't like Arctics because you all know what an Arctic is. So it has more capacity. So if you have an Arctic on a certain line that has, for example, a 6-minute headway on a 40-foot bus, and you put a bus out there with 50% more capacity, one of two things are going to happen. You're going to run a 9-minute headway because the capacity is 50% higher. You follow why that would be the case? You have 50% more capacity, so therefore you run a wider headway. Or if you keep the same headway, you're not going to capture the value of the investment in a more expensive articulated bus. So as a general rule, I'm not crazy about them. People like them, I think, sometimes because they look like trains. But you need to get down to the economic case. It doesn't make sense from an investment maintenance perspective, but also from a passenger perspective. In the case of the Orange Line, Arctics make a great deal of sense because we're headway constrained because of the signal system. In any case, in the coming years, I'm sure there'll be a discussion about what we're going to do with try to convert that to a rail line amount. We'll see what happens.
There was other thing I remember now. Issues, one of the benefits of a high-speed rail is that we get the run-through tracks which are called the SCRIP project, and Metro is going forward with next steps. And so how does the state funding issues affect, or what is Metro doing on that issue?
The problem Bart's referring to is northbound trains come up and they turn south into the yard. Southbound trains come down right out here. I wish we were on the 25th floor so you could see it. This is the throat of the yard right over here. And it narrows to about 5 or 6 tracks. So all the trains have to come through there. It's constrained. That constrains the capacity of the station. I think there's about, 12 or 14 tracks where trains can berth, and they can each track can berth 2 Metro trains at the same time. So there's a lot of capacity there, but the constrains it. So one option is to build what's called run-through tracks, which would allow them to go southbound over the freeway to south of us, and then have the rest of the trains to go either north or south, San Diego or Riverside or up north. Those are the run-through tracks. That project's been supported by all the counties in Southern California because it benefits Metro and Amtrak. We have some money programmed. That project has a great deal of support. As to the second part of your question, what happens with the state, there's some open questions right now because of the high-speed rail program that are not resolved. There's questions about whether or not the high-speed rail funding plan is adequate. I won't opine on that. There's a fair amount of money committed to the run-through tracks project and to the connector, and of course we'll make sure that the funds remain in place.
And we're going to open it to questions.
Yeah. Yes. I am a vector programmer engineer. So after I worked in over plants in Spain, I was transferred to transit and transportation division in San Francisco. So at that time it was Bechtel, Parson Hall, the author of Bar, Atlantic, Miami, and then I was sent down to Venezuela, which we did, the MOS, fire station. When I came back to LA, we lost to, well, it was Parson Hall, Dingy, right? So I didn't have a job. And I started doing things on my own. And that was like 25 years ago. And I got the opportunity to work with Anil Verma. Anil Verma did, I think it was North 40, and I did Vermont Sunset with Amman with me. So I would like to commend you for your support to the small business community. MTA is strongly doing that. And I would like to add that, Mayor Trump Brandon was a visionary, but he was blasted for the community. No, this is so expensive, the red line is just 100 million. And the ridership was pretty more, like probably 10,000 a day, now it's 100,000. So it's amazing. I think the same thing is going to happen with this Florida tunnel. It's so billions of dollars.
Which tunnel are you talking about?
This Florida tunnel.
405.
The 405. That interchange 101, 405 to the airport. And that will be probably a picnic type of work. So I would like also to encourage you to support that project because it's something that now is saying, this is too big, but actually will be, it's a vision that MTA will have.
My comments on P3 should apply to that. We're going to explore that project and see whether it makes any sense or not. It might. It's a big, potentially a very large project, and potentially with very great benefits. So we'll see. It's too early to judge what the outcome would be, but it might make a great deal of sense. So we need to explore it.
Are you aware of any large projects that have already been P3 projects in the United States of the magnitude of this, well, the past projects? Can you describe, are they successful, or can you describe them?
There's some in Texas.
Where did they get the money?
Gosh, I don't know.
The same thing that we're getting money for the
There's stuff going on in Virginia and Texas. And Florida. So, and there's stuff going on in Spain, in Asia. So the concepts apply elsewhere successfully. So, it's funny, if you the Europeans or Asians or South Americans, what seems new and daring to us is not seen especially new and daring to them. So, our goal is to go out and to attract those folks to come here and talk to us about potential investments in these various projects in Los Angeles. We'll see where it goes, but there's at least potential there to do some big things and to accelerate projects ahead of the major R schedule.
I've heard that there was a Korean company that was already here looking at that Sepulveda Pass project.
I believe that's true.
Are there others?
Yes.
And they've actually been on site?
I don't know if they're on site or not, but there's others who are back.
When do you expect to let the public know, or at least the board know, what they suggested?
Oh, it'll be a year or longer. We're in the very early assessment of what that project might be. Right now, I can't tell you where it would start, where it would end, what the terminals would be.
They can't.
Good for you. It's, a lot of people have opinions, and that's fine, I have them too. But we try to go through an analytical process to make sure that what we're doing isn't reflective of some individual's opinion or preference, but rather the best business case that can be served. So we're starting to work on this, but we're in the front end stages of it. We're interested in doing it. We're excited about doing it. So we'll talk in the coming years. So where do you think it starts and stops?
You better start somewhere about where the orange line is on Van Nuys. You better finish up over at UCLA.
But then you dump all those cars.
No, there's got to be, that's the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then from there, it just goes on down through LAX and into the south.
Well, I think there's a great deal of interest in doing that, maybe with an airport connection. There's discussion about what do we do with the south line, with the blue line, the west line, the green line. Stay tuned. It's frustrating to think that we don't have all the answers, but we got I'm sorry, a lot of stuff going on. This project, this notion has emerged relatively recently, so we're in the front end of looking at it. I think it could be potentially very exciting.
What was this all about? Who drew this map?
Oh, we did.
I see.
Just a sidebar, a couple years ago, the Valley had always been against everything. As Art mentioned earlier, the valley was the hotbed of opposition for everything. So Justin Walker, who now works for ERA, got his master's degree, and myself, with a couple other of our colleagues, drew up this map as a vision to show what you could do with this corridor. One of my team members called it the gem line because it connects jobs, education, and medical services. If it connects to Expo, you can get to USC. And so that's an important piece. So we visualized it, and so I just thought it would be appropriate today because as long as there's public passion, and Art can move his agency forward. When there gets to be people like in Cincinnati where they've already spent hundreds of millions of dollars to build a streetcar and somebody gets elected and stops it, or the same thing in Toronto, we can't have that kind of insanity in Los Angeles. We need the public support, and Art has to have that support to move his agenda forward to build things. That's what the reason behind that.
Art?
Yes, sir.
At one point, I think that you guys were considering possibly an early PDA for the Sepulveda project. Is that still the case, or what do you think the timeline on that is?
Consideration. I'll tell you a secret right now. We very rarely do this. We spend close to $5 million a year, and we have a bunch of employees. I don't know everything. And I don't attempt to know everything. It's in process, it's been in process. We've had some discussions with potential investors. The work's underway. Next coming year, I think this is some progress. I don't mean to be flip about it, but you know, I don't attempt to come here and represent that I know everything. I probably get it wrong if I try.
Art, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
When the orange line was built, many corridors were studied, all the way from Ventura all the way up to Big Three, several, 5 corridors were studied at that time. I was very heavily involved in it. The question is, there's plenty of capacity in the San Fernando Valley. What is the prospect of building another light rail line parallel to this?
Because of the orange line?
Orange line, not very close to it, but somewhere along.
Where would you put it?
You could run it along Ventura, run it further up on Roscoe or Van Nuys, and
I don't know. I don't think it's under discussion right now. I think it's under the active consideration. The Van Nuys project is, the Sepulveda Pass project is, the Orange Line project is, improvements to Metrolink are. At least I'm not aware of any other discussions about parallel east-west rail lines. I do know that we're in the process of creating the LOSAN JPA, Joint Powers Authority, whose task would be to create better coordination between Metrolink and Amtrak services on that line going across the valley and down into Orange County. I think that the goal of that outfit will be to get better service all the way from San Diego to San Luis Obispo, coming into the main station. I'd like to see service out there until midnight. I think there's a great deal of potential on that corridor. I think then integrating that line with the Orange Line with the SoCo would make a great deal of sense.
and maybe even DMUs can run with better headways.
No, there should be. I don't know the schedule to the north by heart, but the last train to Orange County or San Diego leaves here at 10 o'clock at night. That's too early, 10 at night. There should be a midnight departure. We bought Union Station a little while ago. We are adjacent to the second biggest city in the country. There are games, festivals, concerts, plays every night in downtown Los Angeles. We should have midnight departures out of the station. We're working on building the station up as a place where you can come and have a good time and have dinner before or after a game, family friendly and all that kind of stuff. In fact, let me comment on that. There's been a slight controversy about removing homeless from the administration. There are times, this is not going to be a good thing to do here. There are times when we have hundreds of people. No, I'm sorry. It is a good thing for you to hear, but it won't be pleasant. There are times when we have hundreds of people sleeping at the station. They represent, to be honest, a public health concern. We need to have the station available to the passengers. So you will hear from us a move to make sure that the station is available, that it's family friendly. People can come here and take a train to San Diego or Santa Barbara or wherever, Pasadena, and be safe. And that means that we have to make sure that we control who is in the station, as they do at airports. Along those lines, by the way, we're talking to people about coming in with restaurants. You know where Fred Harvey's place is over there? If you don't, you go yourself to go look at it. It's absolutely beautiful. There's a little bar off to the side, a little saloon. Every time I go in there, I expect to see Jack Nicholson. And I'm not kidding, it's a beautiful place. So you should go look at it. You know, we're talking to different restaurants about coming in to the station because we want it to be a place you can go before or after a Dodger game or an SC game or whatever. Yes, sir.
Yeah, following up on the Union Station, I guess the new rules of the homeless scheme there. I heard a lot on KPCC yesterday about these rules, and I read online that it's like a 2-hour depart. You have to have a ticket on Amazon that would be departing in 2 hours. My question is for people coming the other direction who, like I myself, have come in on the Flyway bus like at 2 a.m. wanting to take the subway, and according to those rules that I was hearing on the radio, I couldn't be in the station waiting for Metro even though I came in on the Flyway. I was wondering, do you guys, was that just not covered on the radio, or do you guys address that?
I didn't hear the radio report, but we're going to make sure that the station is safe and clean. We're going to do what we have to achieve that objective. We can't have a situation where ticketed passengers can't get a seat because others are spending the day loitering at the station. Period. We're going to take care of that. Mr. Rubin, we used to work together for many years.
Greetings, yes, way back in the day when your hair was black and mine, well, existed.
What? My hair's not dark anymore? You know, I do notice that from time to time, if I'm in like a hotel, a room with big mirrors, it creates the illusion that my hair is gray. But joking aside, Tom.
Well, first, just to respond to a question, I believe the largest P3 project for transit in the U.S. was Hudson Bergen Light Rail in New Jersey, which was about 2.3 million in 3 segments. And that was about 10 years ago, and that was design, build, operate, maintain, and part of it was finance as well. But my question was, on the Orange Line, have you thought about platooning buses? Just running 2 of them right after each other?
No, I don't know, we probably should. It's a good idea. You know, I don't know if they look at it in operations. It's a growing problem. We need to figure out what to do about it. So we need to be open to all solutions. I've asked, we are talking to the city about giving us another man on the headway, but it's not a bad idea.
Well, it'll need a lot of fine tuning, but
Yeah, it does.
it has some potential, particularly since you could probably short turn one of those buses, save a little money there.
Short turn is a bus that doesn't go the whole, doesn't go the whole line. It's good to see you.
See
By the way, I should tell you, I live in Pasadena, and I grew up in the area, and I take the GO line every day. And it's faster than driving in the car. It's a lot easier than driving in the car. Other questions? Yes, ma'am.
With respect to P3 projects, you may be aware about a recent article in the Wall Street Journal that chronicled a number of privately financed transit projects that failed to make a return on the investment and the value restructuring. And in some cases, some very significant infusion of money from the government. In reviewing proposed P3 projects for Metro, what will you do as CEO to ensure that that doesn't happen?
We're gonna make sure that we're very careful.
And so what does that mean?
It means we're gonna be very careful. We're gonna make sure that we have a strong business plan that considers all the variables. There have been some failures, there's some great successes. So we wanna make sure that we learn from them and that we have a solid business case to ensure that we proceed on a daily basis. I don't know what else to say to you, you know. Other than being prudent, thoughtful, careful, and business-like, I don't know what you would ask us to do, but I'd be open to whatever suggestions you have.
Can I add to that too, though? The public and the municipality, the owner, receive the product and the asset at specification, at what they, so the city and the residents, everybody has the asset. The person who took on the risk is the private sector, so that's their problem to solve.
You know,
But the public has
there's some, you know, they're gonna be very careful about this. They're gonna wanna make sure that what money they're investing is gonna result in a return. You know, my hope is to go to the board in the next couple of months and talk about that. I mentioned a while ago that there are different forms that a P3 might take. You know, there's some things that we have to ask ourselves, the board, whether or not we want to do those things. We haven't had that discussion yet. So we need to look at it and look at the business case. I'll give you an example. Setting the tolls. You know, if someone's going to invest some amount of money, are they going to have the authority to set the tolls, or is Metro? If Metro wants to set the tolls, that increases risk for the private investor. So there has to be a discussion about it. There has to be a negotiation. They haven't started it yet. Haven't done the analysis. Haven't done the business case. But I believe we be conservative, prudent, and careful. I do not believe in blowing off into a big deficit situation by accident.
What potential project do you see as being Metro's first P3 project?
I don't know. Artie's not really right now. Artie's a collection of projects that were assembled looking for public-private funding. Now, I'm going to go off into a wild guess. I'm going to guess you're wondering if it's a 710 foot. Could I be right? See, you didn't know I had psychic powers.
I think someone might have shared who I am.
Well, this badge here is screaming at me. Well, why are you being seen in public with her then?
Yeah.
Look, we don't know what the project is yet. You know, we're going to come forward with environmental work next spring. So after next spring, we could begin to talk about what the project might be and how we might pay for it. But I don't know right now, and you know very well, if I prejudge the outcome of that work, you will be unhappy with me. Will you not? So therefore, I don't want to do that. Because I want you to be happy.
Well, there's 5 alternatives, as you know.
And so
Or
what we need to do is follow the analytics, as we are in Beverly Hills and many other places. We need to get LAX. We need to get the business case outlined as best we can humanly possible. We need to open that up to criticism and critique and public comment. And we need to see where it goes. We're not there yet. But, you know, I think it would be fun to come back here a year from now and talk about it and see where we are. Because, you know, a year from now we'll be 6 months into a discussion on what the outcome of that is. And, you know, let's talk some more. But I would also say to you, you should wait and see the business case. You should wait and see the environmental impacts. You should wait and see what it is. We should all do this. Now, you're a citizen. You have a right to do whatever you want. You know, but my job as a public manager is to ensure that Metro is doing the best job it can humanly to make sure that we're following the proper case and the proper procedure. That's what we're doing.
I don't want to talk about 710. I was former counsel to the Alameda Corridor Transportation Authority when we built the corridor. And I guess that was a P3 because we had the railroads paying the tolls and we had to buy the property from the railroads. But one thing about that project, I'd like your thoughts on this, if this is a way you envision P3 structure that Metro might pursue. You had kind of a waterfall, you had bonds at issue, and then there had to be a revenue source for the bonds. And revenues generally were the railroad tolls. It was like a railroad toll, the railroads paid for each box that went through the corridor. But if the revenues were not sufficient, the two ports had to step up to the plate and pay the debt service on those bonds. Do you envision Metro being in a situation like that where bonds would issue and in general the tolls are supposed to pay it, but if the tolls don't meet the expectation of the revenues necessary for debt service, that Metro would step up and pay that debt service?
You know, what we're gonna do with the board in the next few months, I kind of alluded to this a while ago. We're gonna go to the board and talk about 5 or 6 forms that need to be paid. That's one of them.
Yeah.
I've never discussed it with the board. You know, one option is to have it purely in a private sector, they pay for it, the risk is theirs. Another process is to have them finance it, and we pay for it. Another process is not the sort of thing that you're doing, we just outline. We haven't had the dialogue yet. So, you know, I've told my staff is, let's do a bit of a primer on this. Let's outline what the forms of P3s are. I don't know how many there are, but there's several at least. Let's outline the forms. Let's talk about what the risk is with each. Let's talk about the pros and cons for each. Let's, you know, then ask them, do you have something for this? You know, and at that point, they have to ask themselves, are they going to let the private companies set the tolls? Yes or no? If not, what does that mean? What does that mean in terms of risk? Are we willing to back up a project with NTA debt or NTA revenue streams? Haven't had the dialogue yet. But a year from now, we can talk some more.
Okay, well, you know, Don Canavi was on our board, so he's going to be familiar with this structure. One of your prior board members, Don Berg, was also on.
Sure, sure.
They're going to
Got an opinion.
supervise it.
By the way, Bart made a comment about how difficult the board is. I must object to that. It's a piece of cake. It's a walk in the park. I've been at Metro for 5 years. I haven't had a bad day yet. It's a really great place to be. But not a bad day. Sir.
There was some discussion at the last NTA board meeting. I've been told that you didn't want them to vote at that point on anything having, or discuss anything about the P3. What can you tell me about happened at the last NTA board meeting?
Boy, I'm drawing a blank.
What I do recall is the small business issue, the bench to integrate
Oh,
small
yeah.
business.
Yeah, that's not
And
what
they
the
wanted
P3
to raise it to 35%,
Yeah.
and you asked them, let's study the impacts and analyze this before we,
Well, the issue there was SPDs, it wasn't P3.
I recall that, but
Yeah, you know, by the way, you know, as a general approach, and I share this with my coworkers, I don't own any stock in Metro. I'm an employee. I don't get dividends. I don't own it. I'm a public employee.
Stock option plan sucks.
So, you know, what I seek to get from them is clear direction. I will counsel my coworkers, you should not own the outcome of an individual decision too much. We need to be analytical and businesslike. In the end, there's a mythical contract between us and the board. They allow us to tell them the truth as we see it, given that we're human beings and our sense of truth is limited. But they get to make the decision. They get to make the final decision. We're turning right or we're turning left. And I would say to my coworkers, and it applies to me, if I can't stomach what the board says to do, I have to quit. Right? We have a constitution. We have a way of making decisions. We have to go through that process. We will tell them the truth as best we see it. And they will tell us what they want to do. So my point here is, I don't trust it has never occurred to me to try to get them not to vote on something. What I try to get is a clear vote as to what are you saying. You know, a clear set of directions so I know what to tell people to do. The issue that you're talking about, I believe, if she's right, had to do with how many small businesses we might get on a certain bench. My concern there is not that we should or shouldn't do it, but also we think there's that much capacity. Can we actually achieve what the board might be contemplating? I don't want to go off in a direction that takes us a year or 6 months or whatever to find out if there's unintended consequences that have had negative impacts on how we do business.
I'll tell you what I'm concerned. I'm a public advocate. I'm a citizen. I own this thing.
Yes.
And I want to be influential in making the decisions that need to be made. So matter of fact, I've been told over and over again, not I, but lots of us in this room have been told over and over again, public pressure matters. Where should public pressure be asserted? Doesn't make any sense for us even to talk about things if your staff is still analyzing it and nobody knows what any of the possibilities.
Well, when we get the analysis done, we know what we're talking about. We'll make a recommendation as clearly as we can as to what we ought to happen. You should believe that public opinion. The board is very sensitive to it. There's a number of forums where you can have impact. There's board committee meetings, or board meetings. There are citizen advisory committees that we have. There's sector committees that exist around. There's individual electeds that you can contact without going through any committee. They pay a great deal of attention to what public comment is. The notion that an out-of-control staff runs rampant over the board and the public, that doesn't comport with my 40 years of experience. Citizens come and they say terrible things to me, but they have a right to, and so I'm going to get mad. They have a right to come in and say whatever they want to say. God bless America and the Constitution. But when citizens come in and make comments, the board takes it seriously. I'll be honest with you. Now and again, there's someone who comes in who speaks who may not be the most coherent person in the world. And I'm not going to say the board's going to, change their view on that. But when citizens come in and ask good questions, cogent questions about what we're doing and why we're doing it, you better believe the board listens to them. And if I would suggest if you have input that you want to make, and whatever, I would suggest you talk to them ahead of time. What I will not do at any time is attempt to keep you away from a board member or to have you not say what you think. I would counsel you to talk to them ahead of time, let them know what you think, tell them what the concerns are. They have staff that work for them. They work, almost all of them work very hard to be as diligent as they can to come to the right conclusion. And they're not saints, neither am I. They do this because there's only so much money. We want to do good things for the public. The public will be happy with what we're doing to accomplish our objectives.
Let me a side comment too is I would suggest that you spend some time, a lot of time with some of your team members and colleagues, with the Supervisor Yaroslavsky. He's vocalized at the board meetings. He thinks it's fine to have a bus through this overpass on a rail line. So there's a person that is sensitive to what the public says. Not enough of you guys are getting to him. So your assignment is go see Zeb. That's a major assignment. He will have a couple hundred people come in to see him. You'll have a lot more progress on another vote for the rail line.
You live in his district?
I do. We've spoken.
He's sensitive.
And we'll go back again.
There's one guy who comes into the meetings, whom I won't name, but he comes in every meeting and he goes into this issue. In, I'll say 1990, early 90s, the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, said no new rail lines, only extensions. And you hear about strings on federal money, yeah, there's strings, rules. So no new rail lines. So we had the blue line in place and the red line was either open or soon to be open. Well, we wanted to build to Pasadena. So, but there's no new lines. So we call it the blue line. Because the Long Beach line is a blue line. It's an extension, what you see. There's no physical connection, but we argued it's an extension 20 years ago.
But then you eliminated the connection.
Let me finish the story. I'm afraid you're incorrect. So we call it the blue line. We call it the blue line. And then later on, I wasn't here, but at some point, the city says, why don't we call it the blue line? So the blue line of Pasadena turns into the blue line of Pasadena. So every month, Arnold comes to me and says, how can a blue line authority build a blue line? Okay, well, that's how they did it. But every month we spend time asking ourselves, how can a blue line authority build a gold mine? Yes, sir.
I was wondering if you could comment on the current status of Metro's role in regional bike share, following on from the Metro Board direction and the West Side City Council of Governments meeting essentially.
I think we're going to be expanding our role. We have bikes on buses and trains now, a lot of them, by the way. The board's interested in bike paths, interested in connectivity, the last mile. They're interested in exploring having, I forget what they're called, bikes, around the county, around the city, where you can go there and rent them for some period of time and then drop them off somewhere.
Bike sharing.
Bike share, yes.
That's what my question addresses.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of interest in doing this, and frankly, we're trying to figure out right now what to do about it. The initial plan request was to have a county-wide plan on bike shares. So there's some cases where it's evident, it makes a great deal of sense. Culver City and Santa Monica, sure, it makes a great deal of sense. But Palmdale, when you say you want a county-wide program that's universally consistent, but you don't want to have a monopolistic one agency provider, it gets a little tricky. There's a number of other variables that we haven't figured out. We got a request about a month or 6 weeks ago, so we're trying to confront it to figure out what we got to do with the plan. There's a great deal of interest on the board to do it. I just think that we don't know what it is yet. My sense is we're probably better off starting a little smaller rather than trying to go county-wide right out of the gate. There are combinations which just make any sense. Santa Monica, Glendale, and Burbank, Pasadena, and Arcady. So maybe we got to try it out and put our toe in the water and figure out how it works before we try to launch off and cover 10 million people. There's a great deal of interest. And a lot of the board members are really intense on it. By the way, we also want to put some investment in training for bicyclists because some of them behave very aggressively and stay out there. If you're being aggressive on a bike and go around trucks and buses and automobiles, we don't want to have anybody get hurt. You had your hand up, Ron.
Yeah. On this Sepulveda Pass tunnel, there's talk of it being a car tunnel also. So can you talk about that? Would it be a combination or?
It could possibly be a toll road with cars, possibly with the rail line. I don't know whether that would work or not. But right now, everything's on the table for the next board. We'll see whether it works. I don't what we need to do is figure out, okay, how big would a tunnel be? What can we put in it? What kind of traffic do we have? What kind of toll would they pay? What kind of revenue would it generate? Is that sufficient to pay for the construction of the tunnel? Is that sufficient to pay for a rail line down there as well? I don't know the answer, but that's the issue that we're trying to do. Would a franchise work? Should we do it? Should we franchise it? After what period of time? Would that pay for the operation?
What generated the discussions about this tunnel? I mean, how long ago and who got started?
Probably came up first time maybe a year or so ago. I don't know who had the first idea, but I think in general we get a lot of ideas from people who want to improve transportation quicker rather than slower. There's some money in Measure R for over the past, but it's in the third decade. So part of the idea was, is there a way of accelerating that project, or a project, by using public-private partnership? When someone comes up with a red hot idea, we try to evaluate it, as we should. And we will tell the board what the analysis makes. I will tell my coworkers, I don't want them making a political calculation about what the board wants. They need to do a business calculation. What will the revenue be? What will the volumes be? And what can they support? They can decide to do it or not to do it. But if we don't do a solid business case, we end up with things with the kind of situation that you were referring to. And frankly, I don't want to be associated with something. Somebody back here. Yes, sir.
Yes, one of the peat trees I'm involved with are international, such as Chile or Kenya. There's a middle market there, and a lot of the wealthy world money is looking for these, an investment type portfolio, and the P3s may work. Is there a way to, in Los Angeles is a hot market for world money. Is there a way, instead of 4 major projects, we do 24, where they bring us this type of wealth capital that can be used as a whole new funding source, instead of these minor projects? You have projects of 200 to 300 million, and it's a major opportunity to use the American wealth, yet at the same time, Los Angeles is a hot market for this type of.
We're open to the discussion. You know, so public pass is a little tricky, because building half a tunnel probably is not going to generate a lot of revenue. But, you know, we appreciate and we hope that the private sector will bring ideas and suggestions that we haven't thought of. We want that to happen. You know, we'll be part of the conversation with the board that I've referenced a few times will be, let's decide what kind of public-private partnership we think is okay, that we'd like to explore, and then commence a dialogue with the private sector to see how they react to it. What ideas do they have? What opportunities do they think might play out? And, you know, my goal is to be fairly, you know, rigid right now about not prejudging what the outcome of that will be. I want to find out what the market will find attractive. My sense is that an LA project would be very attractive, but we got to do the work.
What I've learned from Mr. Antonovich's office is if you have some kind of connectivity all the way from the Santa Clarita area, all the way on down to the airport, you've got a guaranteed market there that can't fail. And Eve Antonovich, who's no crazy liberal, he recognizes he's got to get people from the North Valley or the North Valley to their jobs down at the airport and at the harbor even. But that's, you've got you know, thousands of people fighting their way over the 405 freeway, even with its new extra lane. And it has no future to it. It's got to be unloaded on an alternative system like the Red Line. I take the Red Line regularly. I came here tonight on the Red Line from the Valley. I don't even think about coming downtown any other way. It's so much easier and cheaper and friendly. I mean, I do it every week or more. And I don't know how you calculate out who's going to get on a line or won't, but when you've got thousands of people that are spending hours and hours getting on that 405 to their jobs, man, that's a market.
Well, that would be, you would address that. I mentioned the traffic and revenue study. You would look at what the travel times are today. You look at what you might provide if you had a toll facility. Look at what you might be able to charge, you know, against what you can afford to pay for, and try to find out what makes sense. If you look at the SR 91 in Orange County, I was down there when we purchased it, and the exact same thing there. They make a lot of money on it, but people, it's 10 miles long at the peak. The fares are, I don't know, close to $10. But what they're buying is 7-mile-an-hour students. So you got gotta make sure you understand what the market would be and how much you think it will pay. Orange County, the toll system which has been in place now for close to 10 years, it varies by hour, by time of day. So when I was there, we looked at what speeds were. We found out we associated speeds with volumes, and when the speeds became unstable, we looked at the tolls. So it's kind of extraordinary to think somebody would pay $10 to drive 10 miles at 70 miles an hour. That's a little. And by the way, some will criticize the Lexus lanes. That doesn't comport with what I actually experience is. You can see a gardener on the toll lanes paying $10 in a pickup truck, and you see some guy in a Cadillac or a BMW going 5 miles an hour in the freeways. I'd rather drive a Volkswagen and go 70, but we all, God bless America, we all need to make that decision.
I've got to tell you, I was in college 30 years ago when peak pricing was being discussed in the urban econ class. I was particularly intrigued to see the rollout of fast track on the 110 and on the 10. Now I'm wondering if you can discuss today whether or not the revenue projections have been met in terms of actual revenue realized.
When we first come out in 91, it's a cleaner case. When Orange County purchased the 91, it was a purchase on the open market, it was not a bailout. Negotiated purchase. When we looked at speeds and volumes of fares and revenues, we created a peak pricing scenario. What happened is fares went up when the peak during session by Thursday and Friday. The peak got wider, the peak got wider. Because some people move their trip off the peak hours onto the shoulder of the peak. So the peak got wider, speeds went up, and revenues went up. That's what we wanted to accomplish. Our system's a little more complicated, so actually a lot more complicated. We're still in the early stages of evaluating it because we have bigger discounts for carpools, and there's some people who were using the lanes before it became a hot lane, and they're kind of grandfathered in. But I will say it's gone better than I thought it would. It's gone much smoother than I thought it would, and we've gotten generally very positive comments from the public who use it. We will be in the next year, we go into the legislature with an evaluation of what we think has happened on those 2 lanes. And that work hasn't started yet, but we owe the legislature an evaluation of what's happened. Initially, we had some issues where volumes on the free lanes went up. We think there were people who were using the HOV lanes, even though they weren't in carpools. So initially, we had some kind of counterintuitive results. That's kind of squared away now. We have hired, what's really happened is some of the volume has moved into the toll lanes. So we're getting more volume and more revenue in the toll lanes, but we're now beginning to see with the higher speeds on the free lanes as well. That's really the objective. I can't recite the numbers to you, but revenues are higher than we expected, and public acceptance is higher than we expected. It's much easier. I thought this was going to really be bad. I thought it was going to really be bad. That hasn't materialized. I don't think I've gotten a complaint on it in the last year. I've gotten a lot of people telling me how much they like it. So it's, much better than I thought it would be.
A lot of the value that you make accessible with the transportation improvements that you're making lies in real estate development. And that can be a better city, it can be a bit bigger city, but in any case, that's how many agencies around the world finance their expansion, and Hong Kong is a classic example. Metro has had a little standoffish attitude towards the connection with land planning. Is there anything in the works that perhaps allows the city to more aggressively reform itself around your transportation backbones?
We don't have land use authority, the cities do. We have done some joint development around stations, Hollywood Highline, Hollywood Vine, Delmar Station, and Pasadena, and other locations. So we're doing some development around stations. We're trying to work with LA on the Crenshaw line, the subway extensions, try to do a better job of it. So we want to do it, we're going to talk about it. I doubt that we'll achieve the full Hong Kong model, or the heavy transit model for that example, for that matter. But we're trying to do some TOD around the station. We're looking right now at the station on the blue Imperial and Wilmington. Not much has happened down there. We'd like to see them do a better job down there, so we're just beginning to explore that issue.
In San Francisco, they're funding a lot of the development by selling adjacent properties that they can open up with the transit development. So, you know, perhaps that's a way that you can help fund in addition to a P3 or something like that.
Anything else? Any questions?
If there are no more questions, I'm wondering what you see the value to be the value of the organization or the transit solution, and what somebody like Bart brings to the transit picture.
Sound like Bart? Bart and I go back about 40 years, so, you know, a long time. I think that there's at least 2 or 3 values. One is, look, Metro employees work very hard. They do the best they can. But they only know what they know. And so having a citizen group bring other information to bear or other opinions to bear may not be something they like, but it's valuable. It's valuable to get more input. In addition to that, what I think is really wonderful about what Bart does is some of the educational stuff he does with graduate students and others over at Cal State Northridge. Are you a student?
How very funny.
Starting to go to junior college.
Where do you have to go?
Princeton or?
I'm on
Sorry?
I'm on I went to 19.
Okay.
And I
Well,
dropped
you
out
should
of
work
that.
at Metro because we have a remedial program.
I don't know, that ladder thing not sounding so good.
You know, so some of the training that Bart does for students and involving them in real life problems on transportation, I think has a great deal of benefit. It irritates some of our employees. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. You know, Bart's been irritating Metro employees for 40 years. So, you know, I personally find that stuff that Bart comes up with to be of value. And by the way, it doesn't matter whether we end up doing what he wants or not. What matters is the exploration of the option and the issues, try to come to the best conclusions.
And would you say your organization is open to it, that advocacy?
Well, I am, and I would certainly encourage the organization to do that. You know, we all, human beings, we all wish we did everything we get off of good ideas. But that's not how life is. Right? Because good ideas never are. If we prejudge the outcome, there's a really good book called Think Again, out of Dementia. It talks about pattern identification. You know what the outcome will be. Matter of fact, you know, life is complicated. The issues are complicated, and there's great benefit in getting input, even if it's of a different perspective. I used to work with a guy who I would call the secret weapon. He was an Egyptian engineer, and he would come up with crazy ideas. And when we were first working together, I would just say, we're not going to do that. And he would argue with me. I'm his boss. He would argue with me. Remember Shaker? The Shaker and the Shaker. We'd argue about stuff, and he would insist on the argument. And, you know, what that was good about was it forced me to think through the parameters, the assumptions, the imperatives, the goals, and the priorities. So at the end of the discussion, even if I didn't agree with him, I'd have better understand why not. You know, but I will say this, you know, 10% of the time he came up with an idea that was crazy and spectacular. We should be open to crazy and spectacular solutions. There's always more ways around the barn than are obvious at first glance. We all get trapped on our own heads. We need to be willing to look at different solutions and different ways to achieve the future. Right? They teach you that at MIT?
Open and scientific.
I would offer you a job. We already have 2 MITers working here, and that's our Florida.
It's all those USC people slogging.
I'll say this about USC. I I knew that UCLA would beat SC at least 3 times this century. I just didn't know it would take 14 years. Any other questions? Thank you. Gosh, I'm impressed that you spend this long. This is a useful work.
You know, Transit Coalition is a nonprofit public organization, and we rely upon sponsorships. Many of you have different corporations, and we'd like to see, we appreciate the help from Anil Verma and Leland Dolly and from Ferrovial, and it's really important. It helps us pay our bills, get to our office, and do the things we need to do to advocate. This idea, this map that was here, came about just because everybody would talk about these things, but there were nothing on paper. Anyways, Art, thank you very much. It's a pleasure. So, if you could give one last applause to Art.
Those of you who are younger, the late great Charles Darwin as well.
Marcela Ayaya, I've known her for a very long time. She used to be with the mayor's office. She used to speak with me when we had the Chamber of Commerce out in Sylmar. Now she's going to speak a little about, I guess, private-public partnerships.
And to share with you who Ferrovial Agrimat is, actually. Does everybody have a copy of this? Because this is information that I'm going to be sharing with you. It's really to share what the competitive landscape is like, who are the P3 players, and how we fit in that role. And I won't take too long of your time. So Ferrovial is the parent company, and it has 4 areas of operations. It has the construction side, which is Ferrovial Agriman. It has the financing, operations, and maintenance side, which is run by our sister company named Sintra. We own and operate Heathrow and 3 other airports out of the UK. So that's our Ferrovial Airport division. And then we have our 4th division of operation is Ferrovial Services, which is municipal services such as changing street lights, subway services, etc. So here tonight, I represent Ferrovial Agriman. And to give you a little history, Ferrovial, the word Ferrovial is Latin. And the word ferro means steel, and vio means way, so steelway railway. We started off as a small rail company and have become one of the leading infrastructure builders in the world. We have 80 years of experience building high-speed rail, roads, ports, airports, large tunnels, all infrastructure that's out there, we've built it, we have experience. In the U.S., we've been operating for the past 13 years, and I'll show you some of our project work listed here. But in the realm of P3s, because that is one of our strengths, we are one of the leading P3 developers out there, along with our sister company, Sintra. I share this with you. The front cover is to show you it's the publication is Public Works Finance. If you turn to the next page, you will see the landscape of P3 players. Okay? So, among that landscape, I've highlighted where Ferrovial Agriman falls. Okay? Ferrovial and Sintra, in the U.S. market, we have built or are building 6 projects here in the U.S. That is the top number held by any company along this list. The next one is, with number 5, it's Meridian. It's a French company. And Macquarie out of Australia with number 4. And the reason they're high up there as well is because they've been our equity partners in projects. And so one of the strengths that Ferrovial Agriman brings to the table is that along with our sister company, Sintra, we've been building P3 projects across the world for the past 4 years. And we currently run and operate about 32 concessions in Portugal, in Spain, Ireland, in Greece, the US, and Canada. The other difference is that in working together, the construction company, along with the financier, which is all run by our parent company, is that we have greater synergies in working together. So you minimize integration risk. You understand what greater risks you can take in terms of design. And also, because we understand that it's a long-term project that we have to run and operate, we're making sure that we're delivering the quality project, the quality asset that needs to be delivered to the public, because in the long term, a better standard project is what's better for the overall project and the overall community. But then again, we're optimizing at price and making sure it's the best price for the public sector. So that's who Ferrovial Agriman is we've been building these projects for the past 13 years here in the US. You will see in the next page that we've invested $73.5 billion in public works across the world. We're the leading investor in public works across the world. So when it comes to public-private partnerships, we have a very strong financial standing, very solid balance sheet. We have a net cash balance of $2 billion with a $6 billion bonding capacity. The next page, you will see our summary of projects in North America. And these are all our P3 projects, except for the one in Virginia. It's a design-build project with a financing component. You will see that all of these projects range in from $1 billion to nearly $4 billion in size. So they're large-scale projects, and many of them in complexity as well. So if you look at the one on your upper right corner, the Dallas, Texas I-635 managed lane, that's locally known as the LBJ. That was one of the strengths that Ferrovial Agriman has, is that it has its own set of engineers. And while we're a construction company, we also have our engineers that have expertise in tunneling and bridges and all different types of infrastructure. And we take our expertise and knowledge and experience that we've had across the world and try to bring that innovation to new projects. So the story with that project, the LBJ project, is that when the owner put it out to the market, it included a tunnel because they wanted to make sure that traffic wasn't interrupted during construction. And the way we were able to win that project is because our engineer team was able to brainstorm and bring the innovation of, rather than building a tunnel, you bring these like bridge structures that you can see in the project. So it eliminated completely the tunnel. And when we put our bid in our proposal, the next highest bid was $1 billion more than ours. And that's how we were able to win this project. We did it in design and in price. So that's really what our strength is and our confidence as well. Not only, the next page will show you our local impact, our local economic impact. So in the Dallas-Fort Worth region, we have about 3 projects under construction, $4.4 billion invested, 4,000 locally employed, 123,000 direct and indirect jobs, 400 Texas-based firms, 90% local. So people think that there's a notion that just because we're a Spanish firm, we're coming in and we're bringing these armies of people to come and work here, we're not going to create jobs for the local market. That's not true. We don't self-perform. We bring our management skill, our experience, and our financial strength to the market. That's what we bring. And we bid out all the work to the local market. The only area where we will self-perform if it's a critical, very risky part of the work, such as a tunnel or a certain bridge structure that is critical. We'll bring our own people from whether they're based in Spain or whether they're based in Texas, wherever they may be, then we'll bring those people and those experts to manage very critical parts of works. And then we work very closely with the small business community. We have 170 DBE certified firms working on those projects. And so all these numbers are going to increase because we're going to begin the construction of another project this January. So all these figures will be increasing. And in 2013, TxDOT awarded Ferrovial Agriman the Small Business Advocacy Award because we exceeded our small business PPE goals. And then the last page, just so you can see, ENR is a big industry publication. In the middle column there, you'll see the top firms in the U.S. And number 10 there is Ferrovial Agriman. So that is who we are. That's what the competitive landscape in a nutshell looks like in P3s. And I'm glad to be here and supporting Art in his efforts with Transit Coalition.
Thank you.